Alright guys, so I'm going to show you some few things we can do with Ncloth. That's a little more advanced, but it allows you to see some of the control that you have when it comes to Ncloth. The problem that does occur when it comes to Ncloth is just trying to find your control. You do want this. This is typically made for automation, for automatically making animation, so it actually works dynamically, so it actually works like an actual object. What we're going to do here is I'm going to show you how you can do that. You can even use a dynamic hair chain if you want to get it to move nicely. The only problem is you have limited control. You'll see in some of these instances that I made myself some little controllers here in which you can control the Ncloth, and believe it or not, it will update. But sometimes you can rip it. So you can see I have little pinning features in here, which allows me to move it. And if you wanted to, you could even keyframe those particular attributes in its movement here. So I can keyframe this guy. So we'll go in here and go back to regular simulation. You'll see that it broke as you slid through. That's the only thing that really sucks, but I can go in here and I can key that as I go through the whole system. So let's go and move this guy right here, and we will key it. Let's make sure we're on the right translation. It's all of them. So let's go and grab all these guys, and we will key them. Oh, not all. My bad for that. Undo. Let's just do key here. Key selected. There we go. So those guys are keyed. And when we go to player simulation, it should update to that position. Now watch this. We'll go to 100 and let's see if this works. Sometimes this breaks, and this is the only disadvantage of using this pin system. So I'll go in here and move this back and move it up. And I will select these guys. And I will key selected. And we'll see if that updates as we go. There you go. So the only, again, it can get tricky because it really is pinning it. It really is pinching this particular object. You'll know it doesn't always update as you go. You can have interactive updating, which I'll show you in a little bit when we use another Ncloth sample. But this can give you interactive control of the Ncloth. Unfortunately, though, it can be limited in the fact that you can pinch some things if you're not careful. Might have a really extreme pinch here. And you'll notice I also have a bone object in here that's all set up, and this is for another demo, so we can actually remove it because it doesn't pertain to what we're doing. And you can see how that guy will react, and so this gives you some control for your Ncloth. But let me show you how to set it up and some of the cool features with Ncloth. So let's go ahead and get this guy here. I'm going to go and create a lattice tool for him real quick. We're going to tweak him out ever so slightly. We'll keep the lattice pretty simple. Actually, we can, there we go, that's pretty simple. Go to lattice point, so we got to get right on the edge there. There we go. Grab that and just scale that down temporarily. Get ourselves a little tail going on there. Okay. Control D, hit W, move this off to the side. I'm going to go and hit E, keep my finger on the J key, and pivot this guy in the right position. There we go. So we'll just keep him a little more horizontal as we're working. So we got a little tail to work with. And we can divide this up a little bit more if we want to. Unfortunately, we are past the history, so it's not going to pop up anymore. So we'd have to go and do a little split divisions. I'm going to leave it as is for now. Now, the cool thing about this, we can actually go in here. Let's make this guy Ncloth. So we're going to switch to the N dynamics. So let's go to our N mesh, and we're going to go create Ncloth. And when we make it, this guy instantly becomes an Ncloth object. Now, if we're in shaded mode, you won't see it. But if I go back to wireframe unshaded, you'll see it's pink. See, that's in the history. And we're going to talk a little about some of these settings here in just a second. But we don't want this guy just to fall off into oblivion, because he will. You see my other piece in the background do the same. So what we're going to do is we're going to grab this guy's vertices. We're going to grab that point right there. And we're going to go to our Ncloth tab real quick. And we're going to pin it into place. This now allows me to go in here and watch my Ncloth simulation go through here. It works pretty good. Now the only problem that can occur, let me rotate this and you can see, it will intersect in on itself. Even though, well, this guy didn't really. My other example in class it did. But to prevent it from occurring, oh, it does a little bit right around there. What you can do is make sure that your Ncloth object, let's open up our properties here, has a self collision, as well as you control your thickness, Be careful not to turn on stickiness. This will not help this situation. But it also is limited on as many edge splits that you have. Excuse me. So I don't have a lot. So as the simulation's going through, maybe I don't have it set to the right appropriate cloth type, and my geometry will actually conflict with itself because it's hitting a hard edge. Now sometimes what can help this is if you triangulate the object ahead of time. That is for older versions of Ncloth, but I've noticed even the new ones sometimes when you triangulate it, it will work really well, and it does that for 2011. So we got this guy. It's kind of a little bit not exactly what we want. You can see collide is on, self collide is on. This is what I meant by making sure you keep these on to prevent or lessen that occurrence from happening where it intersects itself. But it does have its limitations. Again, it's based on the edges and the points that you have on this object. If you don't have enough, there's a high chance that this guy may punch through itself because you hit a hard corner, and you saw that on the last one. But what I'm going to show you is we're going to change our Ncloth type. And so we can actually have this imitate more like a cable, or it can imitate maybe even a tail if you wanted, kind of like a little very cartoony type of effect. So let's go and go to our properties for it. Go to attributes, and we open up Ncloth. Now you'll see we have several things to mess with here. You can do vertex face, and this is the one I typically leave on. This actually works really well. You can do full surface. This can take a little bit longer, and sometimes if you're not careful, if it's too complicated, it may cause things to lock up on your playback. To prevent lockup on your playback, there's two different ways to fix that. One, we can go in here, switch this to every frame. I don't always recommend that, but if you have a lower graphics card, this can help on the playback. Or two, you can actually go into your, let me see, just switch the dynamics. Oops, not rendering, dynamics. And we can go in here, and underneath our, let me see where it's at here, solvers, you can do interactive playback, which we'll do in just a second. And this allows you to see your updated piece as you go if you're having some playback issues. I just wanted to mention that really quick because these guys have to do with also playback, but as well as your final outcome. So these are just things to think about. So we keep it on face, collide. We do want self collide on. You saw me talk about that earlier. You can also display the solver for collision if you want to. You can look at the thickness here based on your settings up here for your thickness, excuse me, right there. And we'll go and we'll turn that off just for now. All right, so we want him to move around in 3D space. So we want it to look more natural. Right now he's just a cloth. We want to make it a little more thick. So what we can do, we can replace the default in here. And we can go in here and try maybe, oh, I don't know, we can try beach ball. But we won't do a full replace. We'll do like maybe 50% beach ball. And you'll see somebody has written notes down here to help you out. And feel free to, anytime you're handing your files off to somebody else, write some notes in here. It's in every part of your attributes. Wow, that was a high voice. Write some notes in here. I don't know what that's about. So we'll go to polygons, and we're going to make a few other controllers here, or actually controllers, but colliding objects. I'm going to keep my finger on the V key and snap them into place. And I'm going to do the same thing over here. Control D, move it up. I'm going to set these all up. I like to set these all up ahead of time because in doing so, Control D, I'll know what I'm setting in for my colliders. And sometimes it makes it easier if you do it all at once. Sometimes Maya can get a little confused if you add more variables as you go and it's getting ready to play back, things are in a catch. It can actually get a little bit weird sometimes on you, which is kind of a pain in the butt, believe it or not. So let me go and grab this guy here. Let me move him down a little bit. I'm going to do Control D again and move him over. And to make this a little more fun, you can also do Control D, move this over here, move this down, and I'm going to shrink him a little bit so I make sure the guy doesn't pass through. And move this over just a little bit. And Control D. And move this over. Pretty exciting stuff, huh? Alright, I'm done. So we got this. I didn't have it set up ahead of time, so we got that now set up. So we can now grab this guy. Our preset. We can go to our beach ball. We'll do 50%, which you saw me do a minute ago. And all of these guys we can have as colliders. And the cool thing about this, I can actually grab all of these guys in an actual simulated scene. I could parent this to a rigged character, these little orbs, or even boxes, and it can restrict the movement of this tail or cable. And it's kind of cheating, but it's legal cheating. So I go in here and do my assign a new material. We'll do simple Lambert. Make it transparent, so if you do render, it doesn't show up at all. And Lambert has no specs, so we're good. And with these guys selected, I'm going to go in here underneath and go back to End Dynamics where Ncloth lives. And Mesh, I always forget where it's at. And we go create a passive collider. So what this does, it now tells Maya on the playback that this tail object is going to collide with these items here. So I'm going to hit play. You can see we have a little airbag. See, it's a little bit cartoony. He's kind of pulling in on himself here. This might be too much air. So we can change that. So let's go and change that real quick. Too much air, Sean. So let's go back in here and let's grab him. And we're going to go ahead. Let's try the presets. Oh, that was beach ball, excuse me. Let's try beach ball only at a 25% blend. Now realize when you are doing these blends that it goes off its last state. So if I'm going to blend, I'm going to blend beach ball into beach ball. It might be a little weird. We can replace it. Let's see what the replace looks like. I'm curious how this is going to look. This one isn't too bad. It's a little bit thick there. Oh, looks like a deflated beach ball. I don't know what happened there. So we can go in here and let's try another preset. Let's try airbag. Let's do a 50% airbag. And the cool thing about this, let me point this out, when you do these Ncloth types, you'll notice towards the bottom here, we have air tightness. You can actually seal up an object and make balloons. In my advanced rigging class at the Academy of Art, I had this one student, I showed her how she could make balloons, add an anti-gravity to them, and actually have them go with this cart, and actually worked pretty well. So you'll see wind, self, shadow. Don't worry about these too much. By default, when you actually make your fields, these things will be active and will affect your object in the scene. Let's go and hit play here again. See it from a different angle. There we go. So let's go in here, and with that guy set up, let's go back to our attributes. Let's go back to our presets. We're going to go in here and do, let me see here. Let's try turning this guy back into a beach ball. But we're going to do 50%, and that's going to mix it with the airbag. And let's see what that does. There you go. So you get like a little Puff the Magic Dragon tail here. And you'll notice, even though these things are in the way, you can still interactively control. Like these guys could be actual, items you can put in to get a particular kind of effect on your tail as you do the playback. Sorry, I'm a little tired. Flew in from Indiana, so I'm kind of... Alright, what a wimpy Californian. And we're going to go in here and do an interactive playback. Let's go to Dynamics. We'll go to Solvers. We'll go Interactive Playback. And the cool thing about this, I can grab any of these items, and sometimes it does a rip on the playback. I can interact with the object. So you can see how your object is going to be affected by your item. So we'll go back again, and we'll do interactive playback again. We can go and see what this guy is going to do. Push this guy over here. Push down on it. And this allows you to really get some good playback and get an idea of how your scene is going to react with the whole scene. And you can make these even a square if you wanted to. So you can have this tail, have these controls, and bob and weave the way that you want. So it adds more control on an already pretty dynamic object, and we can put these boxes invisible around this tail and be able to shuffle this tail any way that you want in that particular direction. And you can also do pinning. Remember I did pinning before? So here's the pin that I did on the base of it, and wherever I move, this guy is going to move also. Well, it should. In this case, it says nucleus is too large, can't define. So what the pin does, it allows you to interactively animate. Looks like I broke it. Let's do Control Z and put that pin back. There we go. And let's see if we can do some interactive playback again. Oh, got to make sure it's at 1 when you do that. Try that again, Solvers. Interactive playback. So we should be able to move it now. See that? And this is what's going to show up in your scene. Now you'll notice it can rip away. Notice it's kind of ripping away. And that's the only real disadvantage with this pin feature. It doesn't work so great all the time, and it can be a little bit tricky. But you don't have to be limited to beach ball or airbag. Let's put him back to his regular state. You don't have to be limited to beach ball and airbag. You can also do other types of Ncloth substances. And in this case, let's go and use a flat plane. Let's move him underneath this guy. Let's grab this guy. And let's edit delete by type history here. And we're going to turn him into an Ncloth object, and we're going to make it so that he interacts with this guy. And I'll show you the optimal settings you need for that playback. So I'm going to go in here and do our end dynamics. End mesh, create Ncloth. This one will be create passive collider. Now, remember when I talked about thickness? These thicknesses need to be the same for it to play back accurately. So even those orbs I made over here, they need to have the same thickness as your object. Otherwise, it's not going to play back as well as you'd like. So what I'm going to do here is I go into my thickness here and change it. We have 0.048. I'm going to be a jerk and Control C, totally cheating. And I'll go back to thickness here and make sure, and I don't know why it does random thickness for all of them, make sure these guys are displaying correctly. Now you can turn on your collision thickness for a second to see how it works. It usually slows down on playback, so I don't recommend leaving that on. And we can do another one here, collision thickness, so we can see where the thickness boundaries are at. Pretty cool. So I'm going to hit play. See several things in motion here. You'll see the Ncloth land right here. Folds really nicely. But this is a good point to show out. Remember when I said it was limited on how much geo you have? Notice these guys are running into each other. One, based on the default weight, and two, because I don't really have enough divisions to really define this as Ncloth, or as a cloth, I should say. Otherwise, it looks like it's folding cardboard. You can see that results in the playback. So let's go back. We can also go in here and change his presets. What presets do we have? So we can do putty. We can do rubber sheet. Let's see what rubber sheet looks like. Never did that one before. So replace and play. So we'll see what rubber does. Almost exactly the same. You can see it bounce though a little bit. And I can change some of that also in my channel box here. I can control the bounce on it. So if I want it to bounce more, so we can maybe raise it up to 10. Usually you got to raise that number up pretty high. Let's see what that does. Oh, he died. Oh, my playback's crashing. So hopefully we don't crash in this scene. Don't do it. Just hit escape whenever you don't want the playback to go through. And then your object goes into another universe. All right, there we go. He probably just got pushed through. That's fine. So again, when that happens, you can do interactive playback, which runs a little bit better. And you can see we increase the bounce, but I'm not even going to push that. I'm going to leave that bounce the way it was on 1. You can do friction, so if you have a wool object, or maybe you want sandpaper to be simulated. Stickiness, if you got like, you know, a sticky rag, some dirty roommate underwear, which is disgusting. I used to have roommates that did that all the time. That gross. It smelled like cantaloupe. I don't know what that means. Actually, cantaloupe smells good. Bad joke. Didn't work out. You can have self-collide and collide like we talked about before, but you'll see there's a lot of things you can mess with. There's a field of magnitude which you can increase, and this actually increases any field that's applied to this guy. But you got to be careful, because if you go down here, you can also control your, let me see here, your seal holes. This is if you're going to amplify anything, keep in mind depending on the object. Now if we did this as an airbag type of object, we can do the air tightness, we can do the pump rate, so as if it's like a tire being blown up. But any of those will still be influenced, even though this is self-contained, can still be influenced by your fields. So keep that in mind. So drag is one of the ones I wanted to point out here, and this can make this object be heavier in weight, as if it's a large object, and you can drag this object like in wind, like if you have a wind surface and it's blowing on, maybe opposed to a tire tied to a flagpole versus an actual flag. So that drag, you can make that flag look heavy, it'll actually drag with the wind. And you also can control the lift. And these are default, and these work pretty well, but you're more than welcome to play with some of these. But whatever you do when you play with these, write it down, or you will never freaking remember what that setting was that was perfect, and now that you completely broke it. As you can see, mine kind of busted a minute ago, so it's not that hard. So let's go to our attributes, go to another preset. We're going to go to putty. Let's see what putty does. And then we'll do t-shirt. Ooh, one of my favorites. Actually, I'm going to skip both of those. You can do that on your own. Let's do water balloon because it's awesome. So we'll just now fill that with water. Let's see what it does. That is really cool. Look at that. Is that nice? So there's no actual extra animation that needs to be done if you want to do a real world simulation. And hopefully this helps you guys out a little bit so you can understand a little bit of this process and how it works. Pretty cool, huh? And you see we have our end mesh, but you can also, want to point this out, I didn't get to cover this in class, you can paint some of your vertex properties on here. Now in 2012 this is super buggy, but I haven't got to try it in 2013. What you can do is you can control thickness, you can paint your friction, your stickiness, your mass, your stretch. All these things can be painted on the vertex properties on this object, and in our case we have vertex face, so you can control some of that distribution and that outcome. Alright, that's about it for this video. Hope it helped you guys out a bit, and I'm going to now stop it.